Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, October the 26th, 2021. And today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 28, Ezekiel 18, 1 through 32, Acts 9, 32 through 35. Or you could have read Psalm 119, 17 through 24, 2 Kings 6, 8 through 23, and then Acts 9, 32 through 35. Again, I'm going to take a look at Ezekiel and talk about once saved, always saved, or perseverance of the saints. This subject kind of brings often, I shouldn't say kind of, often brings up arguments that Methodists find themselves in, particularly Wesleyan Methodists, because not all Methodists are Wesleyan, or more to a point, Wesleyan Armenian. There are Calvinist Methodists, but more often if you meet a Methodist, they're going to be the kind of Wesleyan flavored Methodist. But we find ourselves in conversations with our other Christian brothers and sisters, specifically, like I said, those who tend more towards the Calvinist extreme of things. At least I hope you find yourselves in those disagreements. If not, you're probably not paying attention, maybe not really thinking about your faith. So the idea behind perseverance of the saints, and I apologize to those who are very dedicated to it. I know I'm not really doing it justice, but I'm trying to keep it as short as possible. And like Wesley says, there are tomes written about this, so you could take all day to talk about this, and I've met people who can. So anyway, the idea behind perseverance of the saints is that once saved, or more to speak of being once justified by God, the faithful will then persevere forever in that state, never relapsing into sin. In other words, once saved, always saved. They can never fall away. So Wesley has this little, not really a tract, not the way we think of it, but more like a pamphlet, not really a book, not quite a long essay, but a pamphlet that he uses to take up the question. Takes up the question, but specifically for the sake of the early Methodists, the early, what we would now call Wesleyans. He takes on this question, decides that he's going to write something about it because, as he says, the resources that are out there, the books that are out there are either that are available, right? They're either so thick and wordy or so expensive that they're basically inaccessible for the average person, especially the people that were the early Methodists. A lot of them were coming out of poverty, and so it just wasn't an option. And so he writes a simple little tract in simple language to explain this to them, because it was a question then too that they were having to face. He writes this little pamphlet and calls it Serious Thoughts Upon the Perseverance of the Saints, and referring to those of us who accepted Christ in faith as the saints. That's what he means. He doesn't mean like the people we normally think of, like when we think of saints, like the big important people like Peter and Paul and, St. Nicholas. He's talking about anybody who has come to God and put their faith in God and put their faith in his son, Jesus Christ, and has been justified by God in his sight because they have put their faith in him. So he begins with these words, and I'm just going to read it straight out of here because it was copying it over again. He asked the question, can any of these fall away? By falling away, we mean not barely falling into sin. In other words, just not like messing up. Not barely falling into sin. That is, this it is granted, they may, but can they fall totally? Can any of these so fall from God as to perish everlastingly? I am sensible either side of this question is attended with great difficulties, such as reason alone could never remove. Therefore, to the law and to the testimony, let the living oracles decide. And if these speak for us, we neither seek nor want further witness. So in other words, he's like, I understand that there's a lot you can say about this, a lot of arguments, but let's look and see what the Bible has to say. And he goes on to say, on this authority, and he makes a statement about like what he understands. He says, I believe a saint may fall away, that one who is holy or righteous in the judgment of God himself may nevertheless so fall from God as to perish everlastingly. In other words, you can drift away from God. You can just turn your back, even though you have come to faith and accepted Christ and put your trust in and hope in God. You can change your mind, or you can just completely do a 180 and walk away. Um, so, and this isn't just his opinion. He says that he turns first to the scriptures, and his first stop in the scriptures is actually what we've got today in Ezekiel 18. I'm not going to go into reading the section, but specifically the area from 21 through to 29 is what he's dealing with, and he quotes heavily 24 and 26 in this. So, and that's the point that's going on in Ezekiel. Like God gets this. In Ezekiel, we hear God's voice stating quite matter-of-factly that a righteous person can drift away from that center and back into the iniquity that leads to judgment, and as God says in Ezekiel, to death. So now you may be saying, if you're a person who's into, like really puts their faith and hope in once saved, always saved, you may be saying, well, yeah, but there's lots of yeah buts. But realize that like Wesley goes on from here to discuss this drifting away of the faithful across the witness of Scripture. But you can read that for yourself. Anyway, that's the DBR for today. Get out, enjoy the day, and we'll be back tomorrow. Talk to you later. Boop.